Hello and welcome to Growth Strategy. I'm Alyssa Evans. Today's guest is Sharon Wood, and we talk about how she built a company using science backed games to help seniors connect with their families and fight isolation. Sharon launched the very first Grand Theft Auto and placed video games on 150 million packages of Fritos. And she's worked with Burger King to build games as well. And then she's taken all of that huge amount of success and expertise and challenged it into something super meaningful. We talk about how she founded Happy People Games using neuroscience and digital play to help seniors access memories, reduce loneliness, and strengthen their family bonds, even across states. So, we talk about what it means to pivot from a big corporate success to building something that actually really changes lives and why that leap was worth it for her. We talk about what most people get completely wrong with aging and connection and what seniors actually need. It's a super impactful episode, and I'm so excited for you to hear it. Let's get into it. Sharon Wood, welcome to Growth Strategy. Sharon, welcome to Growth Strategy. Whether you're scaling a business, thinking about starting a side hustle, or you're a stay-at-home parent ready to build even more in your life, this is for you. We challenge the roadblocks, reframe the obstacles, and give you real tools to start building a more intentional life. It takes a village. Welcome to ours. So you've worked with Fortune 100 companies and launched some of the most iconic games in history. What made you pivot into building games for seniors and caregivers?
So the thing about games is not only do they bring challenges and joy, but it became very clear to me early on that, coming out of media and events and stuff like that, cable television, the games were a completely different animal. And the reason is it's experiential instead of just passive. You are in it. And if
Mhm.
you ask anybody who's played any kind of massively multiplayer online game, they are in the Star Wars universe. They are in, World of Warcraft, and nothing else exists. And to try to harness that to remove some of the barriers that we have in everyday life became really interesting to me. And lucky me, I'm getting to do it.
Mhm. Okay, so give us a little bit of history of your background with games before you came up with Happy People Games, and just give us a little history and then kind of your transition into changing what made you want to take a leap.
So it's not just digital games. I worked with Burger King as their agency with a team, of course. And we were doing those scratch off games similar to McDonald's Monopoly. We had the
Yeah.
Aren't You Hungry Whopper game and the Land of Whopportunity.
That's amazing.
And it
It's
would
so
drive people into the restaurants to get their game
yes,
pieces to see if they won French fries,
that's
right?
true. Yes. That's so I did that as a kid. Yes. It's so
Exactly.
fun.
Everybody got free French fries. So when I went into digital games at the dawn of the PlayStation, I was really fortunate to have editors who spent time with me to help me understand what made a great game and why it was so difficult to come up with a slogan about it or to even write a review about it because games are what you feel instead of and less about what you see, right? Games can
Mhm.
spark an emotion. You can cry in a game, right? Final Fantasy, some of those scenes from Final Fantasy, it's like, damn, right?
Yes.
I liked him.
Yeah. Yes. The
So
storytelling and it's fascinating. Yeah, it's always so amazing and so deep. Yes, you're right.
very deep. And so the idea of then taking games and turning them to other things that might be barriers to happiness, I kind of knew that. Well, I actually talked to somebody at the NIH who was telling me because they were funding games for, well, the sentence in their RFP was the federal government seeks serious games to improve population health. And I thought, wait a minute, what are you doing? And so he was very generous with his time to explain to me what data they were seeing on learning improvement, mood improvement. I mean, there are games for relieving the burden of ADHD and Asperger's and even cancer treatments. Yes, I knew somebody who was doing something for vets with PTSD with games. And so the idea of doing that became really stuck with me. And I have personal experience with memory loss and Alzheimer's and dementia. And I was lucky enough to find researchers who worked with us and told us, okay, here's what works, here's what doesn't work. And then game designers. And then we figured out how we might tackle it. So the products that we have now are not going to cure Alzheimer's and dementia. That a game can't do that. But what it can do is help you avoid geriatric depression, because when you can't remember who you are, and you can't remember who the person across from you is, it can be a very isolating, lonely thing. And so to create a game that could, first of all, that they could win at, achieve, right? So we decided to go at their memories and how they might want to reminisce. And reminiscing brings back joy most of the time.
Mhm.
It's the good old days. It's, what song was playing when I had my first car, went on my first date, all that kind of stuff. And the idea was to stimulate those dormant memories because those are the ones that stick around the longest, but also connect you, give you something to talk about, which could be a son or a grandkid who you can't remember, but you could still have fun with them.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so how building happy people games required you to basically start in this whole new space. So what did your, strategy look like when you're in the early days when you knew what you wanted to create, but you weren't it's just a new audience for you as well? Like how was your approach in marketing that and building your product?
So, because I've worked with so many different brands and target audiences, there are three things about games. One, 51% of game players are female. And so,
I didn't know that. That's surprising. Yes.
right. And so that was a factor. And then the other thing is you sometimes look at overlooked markets, but you also look for big ones,
Mhm.
right? And so when we looked at the landscape of what was going on for people with dementia, it became pretty obvious that there was a real gap in the market to create joyful games that could connect people, that could use the science without being sciency about it, right? That could just
Yeah.
look fun and just let you go and have at it. Earlier, so the company that has these memory care games is Happy People Forever, and it's a subsidiary of the company that I founded 10 years ago, which is Happy People Games. And that company does games for, it uses video game strategies and the science for sexual misconduct prevention, discrimination prevention, suicide prevention. And it's a very serious group of products. And so we created this other brand because even though it's serious, it's not that kind of serious. But,
Yeah.
when you have lived it long enough and you see things that you hope can find a solution, right? To improve learning or joy barriers, things like that. I think that's kind of what I get to do, and I'm okay with backing into a strategy, right? As long
Yeah.
as we have a strategy,
Yes.
right? Because sometimes the best strategies are the ones you back into because you're fact finding and you're pulling all those pieces together and you go, "Oh, wait a minute. This
Yeah.
is good." And when you use science, that's a strategy, right? You're saying, "Okay, no, we don't want people to get depressed. We do need to elevate mood. We do need to improve social connections. Games do that. Let's try
Mhm.
that," right?
Yeah. I love talking about science. I've a my background psychology, so I just love when like neuroscience just comes into, I guess, the day to day of products and people weaving things in there. So how has that influenced you? I mean, how has that influenced your games and your approach? Because it's a very fun activity, but it's also very, what's the word? Like, I don't wanna say sciencey, but, there's that whole
It
that
is
there's this
sciencey,
yeah,
right?
this the whole scientific aspects of it going with it. So how do you find that balance, I guess, that for
Um,
that?
You iterate a lot is really what you do. And the other thing is, I am so lucky to have a team of researchers who are a joy to work with besides being super skilled at what they do.
Mhm.
And the researcher who I'd been working with the longest said to me, you know, zero in on elevating mood and breaking social isolation, right?
Yeah.
Because there are products that can do things with a more sciencey approach, and maybe we'll get there. But there is a science to breaking social isolation and depression, right? And reminiscence is one of the tools in that toolkit. And so we just sort of looked at it that way. And I also know somebody who is a brain researcher at University of California, Irvine, and I showed him the two games, and he said, you know, the music game is going to be, effective because we've got a lot of science about how music from when you were young can be stimulated and bring back happy memories. But the other one, which is using is autobiographical.
Mm.
And he said, and that's not something I've seen before. So he said, you know, looking at giving people a tool to piece together, if you will, the
Mhm.
moments of their lives, right? To recreate a moment in time. Um, that's a good thing, and that's sciency too.
Yeah, yes. So, just let's go over how like, your 2 apps that you have, the one's with music and one is the autobiography still frames. So, can you explain your goals with those and the, just yeah, for the just yes, explain it. I'm gonna go.
So the beauty of those games is they can be used in a clinical setting at nursing homes or senior care centers. As a matter of fact, there's this fabulous lifestyle director over at one of the local memory care residences. It's called Maplewood here in
Mm.
Connecticut. I met him on a Sunday and he immediately said, I know exactly what I'm going to do with these. And then when I saw him again on Thursday, he actually had me meet somebody who had been using the game and wanted to show me his memories. Right. And I know, right?
Yeah.
Letting it be in that kind of environment. If I were in a memory care center, even if my kids came and saw me every weekend, there's an awful lot of time when I'm on my own.
Mhm.
And so giving them something to do that can bring a smile or spark a memory, yay. And then
Mhm.
conversely, direct to consumer, we put it in the app stores so that whether or not you are trying to exercise your memory, which was important, or you just want to use it to create messages for your kids and grandkids, or if you want to just go back and forth and have something to do. I used to play Words with Friends with my in-law, and it was a way for us to just stay connected together, and no pressure. Weeks could go by and I wasn't doing my word,
Yeah.
but it's still a way to be connected. And so for these products, it's a way for that to happen too.
Yeah, that's yes. Words with Friends was really good at connecting with people, and especially far away, and that's true that it's nice to have that component where you're going back and forth with somebody. And I love that aspect of the still frames with where you can share the pictures with your family members because or just your friends and family so that they can have that memory of them and, maybe they can have a collection of frames and just to have that time in their life. That's so great. Oh, okay, so what is next for Happy People Games, and how can listeners get involved and support what you're building?
So would love for them to check out happypeopleforever.com because the links to the products are there. We're going to just you know, keep track of how this is going. We don't want to stop at 2 products. There are
Mhm,
more products that we can create. The feedback that we get, and I just am so grateful. We've had feedback from people on Facebook and Instagram about how they're using it, what they're doing with it. That all kind of goes into the stew of what are we going to do next? How do we continue to improve what's already out there, right?
mhm.
And I can just tell you, just fun anecdote, my young grandson played Timeless Tunes because he was waiting for me and he was bored and I handed him the phone and because of the clues, he knew all the answers, got all the answers, right?
Amazing, yeah.
And so he was like, this isn't for old people. And I said, it is because it's their songs. And he goes, well, then I have to find an old person to play with. And I was like, score, not me.
Thank you.
Right. So it can be cross generational, and don't you don't have to have lived that music to actually play, which is
Yeah.
the beauty of it. So just getting all those use cases together and like I said, putting it into the stew of how do we improve it and or what do we do next is because we're in this for the long haul. This we're not going to just stop with two.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's too big of a mission to stop at 2. So, if for the listeners, for somebody who wants to build something meaningful but is scared to kind of walk away from that world that they know, what would you tell them about making that leap for more mission-driven purpose?
Strap in.
Yeah.
That's number one. Right. So
Yeah.
this was an idea that kind of stuck with me. And it's not an idea I pursued. It's an idea that kind of found me.
Mhm.
And I think when you've had as fortunate a background as I've had in business, like even going back to those silly Burger King scratch off games, right? You you kind of look at what you're doing and you say, and it's not even a legacy. It's really more, what can I do with what I know that hits on things I care about?
Mhm.
And that's really the reason for the company. Like the world doesn't need another new lug nut, although who didn't doesn't love another kind of more convenient lug nut, right? But for me, having worked in media and marketing, marketers are always assessing what do people want? How do I convey that to them? And so working with a team of psychologists, we're kind of doing the same thing from different angles, right?
Mhm.
And so it's a fabulous blend of my background. And for anyone else looking to take the plunge, just look at who you are and what you care about, and it'll come to you. That's what it did
Yeah,
for me.
that's amazing. Amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much, Sharon, for being here. I really appreciate your time and your mission and just like you're putting your heart into something that's like really making an impact in people's life. So just like thank you from a human perspective, like that's really just a very um amazing, beautiful thing that you are creating. So yeah, thank
Well,
you
thank
so much.
you.
Yeah, of course.
And thanks for helping us get the word out.
Yes, of course. I will I will scream this at the top of my lungs for people because I believe yeah, I mean, from anyone that's personally dealt with somebody that's had dementia and Alzheimer's, it's a very sad, you know, it's a really sad thing to watch somebody that you love just lose their memory and anything that you can do to give them that peace and like just remind them that they're, a person and they can like, what they are capable of and not so much of what they are limited to. It really makes a difference in their day to day.
And I would just say that as a parting thought, we, when we see people who we love, because I've had some who can't remember anymore who you are, it's, I think, sadder for me than it is for them
Mhm.
because I'm the one with who's keeping the memory of who they used to be, and they're kind of lost in the void, if you will. So you let go of that in service of supporting them and giving them joy, and just look for any way you can to connect with them. And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if they remember my name, it matters if, what they're going to go through life with is the joy that they've been given.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you too.
Get more strategy at growyourstrategy.co. Strategy. Sharon, thank you so much for talking with me today. It was such a meaningful conversation, and the work that she is doing is just a reminder that some of the most impactful businesses aren't always the loudest. Sometimes they're the ones that are quietly changing somebody's life in the most human way possible, and how important and beautiful that is. And so, if today made you think about someone you love, please check out Happy People Games and go to happypeopleforever.com and connect with Sharon. Thank you so much. And that's a wrap on this episode of Growth Strategy. But before you go, I just wanted to say that I am so glad that you are here. This community is built on real people doing real things, and that includes you. So, if something from today's episode hit home, save it, share it, or pass it along because it really does take a village. And if you're ready to grow even more, sign up for some more resources over at growyourstrategy.co. Follow us on social media at Grow Your Strategy, and we can keep cheering you on. Until next time, keep growing. Bye, friend.